Teaching number 188. Come, beloved disciples, behold the Master. You recognize me by the essence of my word, I recognize you by your actions. In the world my disciples will be recognized by the cleanliness of their works, and when they arrive before my presence, full of the good fulfillment of their duties, I will tell them, you are truly my disciples, because you have practiced what I taught you. Fight to reach spirituality, because it means the liberation of the spirit. Adjust to my laws that are loving and infallible, and they will govern your life, because everything that surrounds you, whether material or spiritual, lives within my law. Man, who is a perfect work within creation, must live in accordance with the grace that the Creator has deposited in him. I do not come to tell you to separate yourselves from the obligations of the world, instituted by me for your preservation, satisfaction, and improvement. Be fair and just, giving what is necessary for your spirit and your body. I have made man free from the beginning, but his freedom has always been accompanied by the light of conscience. Despite this, he has ignored the voice of his inner judge, moving away from the path of the law, to the point of creating those fratricidal, bloody and monstrous wars, in which the Son has risen up against the Father, because he has separated himself from every feeling of humanity, charity, respect and spirituality. Men should already flee from destruction, from wars, and avoid a painful restitution. Know that if they do not manage to purify themselves in the good before reaching me, I will have to send them back to this valley of tears and blood, because whoever walks in the opposite direction of perfection, will not be able to reach me. How can this word reach mankind? In the form in which I made it arrive in the past times, through emissaries, prophets and disciples. I am preparing you to send my teachings and revelations to all places on earth. If you are ignored today, tomorrow you will be recognized. The mission of the new apostles will be to rebuild morality among this humanity. This fight will be intense. Pray always that you may gain strength, practice so that you may attain perfection. Watch, because the spirit is stalked by the beast of evil in 1,000 forms. I let my words fall into your heart like drops of dew that give it life, but if you could understand what I tell you, how clear you would see the way. In your thoughts I shed peace and my light, because through them, you will also reach me. Feel the lesson that the Master comes to give you in the spiritual language, in the universal language of love, which brings men closer to their Creator. My word is like a new dawn of peace for your spirit, like a ray of light that illuminates your path. You have heard this voice often, and gradually you are understanding its meaning. I am manifesting myself in all of humanity, because it is the time when the entire world will know spirituality, a time of spiritual communion. The Christ of love is pouring himself into his children so that they may reach their salvation. There are many who, without having listened to me at this time like you, are seeking the same goal that you are pursuing, because they feel that the time has come for their spirit to strive to communicate with its celestial Father. In the second era I gave you to understand that a stage would come in which humanity would know and develop the communication of thoughts and would receive my wisdom through intuition and inspiration. Then a Pharisee approached me and said, if you are the Son of God, tell what he is like. If you are sent by the Father, tell what the Father is like. And I answered him thus, he who knows the Son, knows the Father, because I come from him. Certainly, I have always been within you, but to feel me it is necessary to not let yourself be carried away by the instincts of matter. When humanity awakens and rises up analyzing what I have revealed, it will know the meaning of life and the mandate that exists in it. It will be then when he begins to stop feeling the pains and vicissitudes, because he will have put his powers and senses at the service of the Spirit. Since the life of Jesus, the Nazarene, is known to all, you have an example to follow, a path on which you will never be lost. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the structure of the world you inhabit and the air you breathe. I am the force that causes man to rise to a superior life from which he sees, understands, and feels everything that surrounds him, because this world is not only a valley of tears, it is also the place where you can have satisfaction, joy, and peace, even if only temporarily. Know me and you will know yourselves. You see how humanity has passed through this world, always purifying itself through pain, and it is that you have not known how to approach me, having always had my light that speaks to you of the transience of this life and the immortality of the spirit. That is why I speak to you today in spiritual language, using your human language to make myself understood. Hearing, you have understood and advanced, because you no longer hear or see these manifestations only in the material form, that is, superficially, but you analyze them in search of their essence. You no longer perceive in your ears the sound of the voice of the one through whom I speak to you, because the divine echo of my word has found resonances in the most intimate of your spirit and your heart. Here is another transfiguration of my divinity, because I, the Word of the Father, communicating in this way, makes it possible for your limited intellect to be able to communicate with the unlimited intellect of the Father. Your spirit, which upon receiving my grace feels dignified, tells me, Lord, you reach our hearts as a true breath of love. Truly I tell you, if in this way you are already understanding and living my teaching, you are reaching spirituality, because you leave vanities and superfluous satisfactions, to come to listen to the heavenly concert. Analyze what I show you. See how the men of science, scrutinizing the human body, have marveled at its perfection, and if that body, which is a temporary being in this life, contains such prodigious perfection, can you imagine the greatness of the Spirit, whose nature is immortal? Now be amazed at the immensity of the sea, at the dimensions of your planet, to take into account that you are more than all those wonders, because you possess a spirit that can be transported in an instant beyond those limits, and that when it is purified and dwells in the kingdom of the Father, all the worlds will be shown to it. Whoever has listened to me loses the fear of returning to his origin, and even if he considers himself a single atom in the midst of creation, he feels the intimate joy of existing, because he is a child of the celestial Father. When you leave this world, you will be like a drop of dew that continues to enliven all that has been created. I tell you, God, the infinite, the eternal, is in all of creation, he is the essence that animates everything. In the creatures he contemplates all the beauty of his work and experiences the joy that exists in the fruits of his inspiration, because everything speaks of him, everything glorifies him and pays homage to him. He is in every manifestation of life, because he is the author of everything that exists. Meditate on this and you will understand that death does not exist. Here is my lesson for this day, a lesson that, like all the ones I have given you, I want to be written down in that book that will be an inheritance for future generations, the Third Testament. This is the third time in which you will step forward. The time that you have sought me through symbols has passed. Now a new era opens before your eyes, but not a new path. I have not come to destroy your seed or confuse you with strange words. I am not telling you to deny the spiritual message that I left you in the past, I am only continuing my lesson that I had begun and which I had left off in its second part. When at that time Christ emerged in the fullness of his human life to announce to men the coming of the kingdom of God, I surprised those people celebrating rites and ceremonies, so I told them to not forget the law and to comply with the traditions. But later with my word and with my works I abolished all superfluous practices, to leave only the law of Moses in their hearts. No one can say that Jesus denied the law of Moses, because with my life, my works, and my blood I taught them to fulfill it. But I also taught them new lessons, appropriate for the time I came and according to their spiritual development. That was the second part of the great book of my wisdom. I taught you a more pure way of praying, so that it would make your love for God and your fellow men blossom. At that time you recognized me as love, I let you know the reason for my coming, I revealed to you the spiritual life, I announced my new advent, the new time, and I left you prepared so that when the moment arrived, you could receive my third lesson, the third part of this book that is open before your spirit today. Today I return to men in the midst of the rumors of war, of the events and signs with which I predicted my arrival, however, men have not felt me. In the midst of this silence, of this humility, in this corner of the earth I am making my word vibrate through human understanding, calling men, awakening them to a new life, regenerating them with my persuasive and sweet teaching, awakening in them their dormant gifts, to lift them up on the paths to imitate their master. I must tell you that in this time I found you involved in greater religious or idolatrous fanaticism than in any of the past, and at the same time your spirits are more naked of virtues than ever. Now I ask you, after having listened to me for years and years through this communication, who feels that I have come to destroy their principles? Who thinks they feel confused or see their Christian faith destroyed? Truly I tell you, what I revealed to you in the earlier times, I have come to remind you of, because you had forgotten or distorted it. That what men had hidden from you, I have come to bring to light, and what I was keeping in my Arcanum, I have come to reveal to you. This age is one of spiritual freedom. Men are enlightened by conscience and will know how to choose the right path. Through an environment where the darkness of materialism and sin floats, my beam and my spiritual envoys have passed. You have meditated in these instants and you recognize that, in truth, you are not worshipping a different God from the one you worshipped yesterday, that no one has closed the doors of your heart towards Mary, the Virgin and Universal Mother, that this doctrine has strengthened your faith and increased your knowledge in the immortal life of the Spirit, and that those maxims of loving your neighbor as yourself, of loving one another, I have come to write in your spirit with the light of my word. I have only come to remove from your heart the superfluous, that which does not allow you to make progress. That is why I have just told you that I have come to grant you spiritual freedom, so that you can find me and feel me at any moment or place, and instead of asking the world what it cannot answer, ask your Father spiritually and receive from his charity the bread of the Spirit. So when you have offended your God in the person of your brother, you know how to forgive him if he offended you, or you know how to ask for forgiveness if you offended him, and I will forgive you, because whoever you have not offended, will not be able to grant you forgiveness for the evil you did to another. Disciples, if you are no longer surprised that I have come in this time among you, do not be surprised either that the spiritual world manifests itself among you. From the beginning of the evolution of humanity, the Father promised the manifestation of the existence of that world, of that life. Truly I tell you, that world has always been in contact with man by my will. In your beginning I forbade humanity to invoke the spirits, because the time had not come, neither the incarnated nor disincarnated were prepared for that communication. Elijah is the precursor of my arrival in this third era, to whom I gave the key to open the doors of the spiritual realm of light, so that its inhabitants have access to the material world, just as I allowed men to penetrate in the afterlife, and there would be closeness, harmony and charity between one and the other. Before my voice marked the moment for that communication, there were disobedient, curious and impatient people on earth who, profaning the forbidden, became the precursors of another kind of communication where darkness and confusion have manifested themselves, because they were not ordered by my divinity. My work is different. I came to bring you this great lesson only after I considered you capable of recognizing and understanding these teachings, which are of the greatest that I have given to this world, so that through the Spirit you learn to observe, to question, to understand and to discover. But by opening this horizon to you, I have taught you a law that forbids you to magnify yourself through these gifts and make profit or misuse them. In this time and when you have penetrated my doctrine, some have felt fear, others distrust, some even confusion, and there have been those who feel horror for the word Spirit, without remembering that within himself he carries one that his Creator has given him, who is also Spirit. Who instilled that fear in you? Who made you dislike the Spirit? Have you not meditated that this body or matter that you love so much is only dust that will take the earth, and you will only remain in spirit for an eternity? What will you do when you find yourself in that state? Will you run away from yourselves? To help you in your mission, I grant you the necessary time for your study, and to relieve your needs and sufferings I send you spiritual servants, true angels of charity, light and peace. Trust that this communication has not been by the will of man but by divine inspiration. Do not confuse this communication with the one that men freely make under their own will, some inspired by science, others by curiosity and others by superstitions. If you observe, you will find that these two manifestations are present among humanity, from the first man who, at the same time that he heard the voice of his Lord that pointed out the path of light, heard another voice that incited him to disobedience and pride. See from there the struggle of man under the influence of these two forces, that of good and that of evil. If from then on man knows the natural law and feels illuminated by the light of conscience, also from there he feels the lurking of temptations. I tell you all this to strengthen your faith and your knowledge. Do not disrespect my emissaries or spiritual messengers, because if you could contemplate the grace with which they are clothed, you would confess that not even Solomon in the splendor of his throne had the majesty of these servants. What would the nations that bleed and perish under pestilence and famine give, for that realm of peace and charity to appear among them and they could listen to its voice of comfort and love? You call that force with which those beings heal your physical or moral ailments fluid. And verily, in that fluid is the balm. It is the same with which Jesus gave sight to the blind, movement to the paralyzed, voice to the dumb, with which he cured the leper and raised the dead. No one arrives clean before my presence, but if someone were to arrive clean, he will not leave this path again stained. At this time when Elijah, by divine mandate, came to open the doors of the beyond to men, I will make humanity understand that this communication was not a profanation of those who practiced it, but a grace reserved by the Father for those men of this time, and that will be the precursor of the communication from spirit to spirit, after 1950, when that grace will come to you. Prepare yourselves so that after this time you will not fall into imposture, into mystification, because I still have many lessons destined to reveal to you. Your imagination must not produce false revelations or inspirations. Light will come from the heavens to the man prepared to speak my truth to his fellow men. The time is coming when men abandon weapons, ambitions and hatreds to go in search of the spiritual, and from among the multitudes will emerge the apostles whose word will be heard and their footsteps followed. This will be in the time of the war of ideas, of religions and doctrines. That battle will be great, more terrible than those that have been caused by the ambitions of earthly power, because peace will flee from hearts, minds will be clouded by the darkness of fanaticism, and the voice of conscience and reason will not be heard. Fanaticism will stir to its depths and will multiply its forces, displaying ostentatious temples. Some will succumb to their idolatry, but others will open their eyes to the light and will be rescued from that abyss. Today all these prophecies seem very distant to you, however their fulfillment is near. The eyes of men will see the idols, the false gods and the great temples that have been the pride and vanity of religions fall from their pedestal, but you will not be the ones who publicly unmask those who lie. That mission will be fulfilled by others. You will be prepared with the word, the heart and the mind, so that your spirit works for the salvation of this humanity with true love. Before the unleashed whirlwind you will not flee, nor will you seek the catacombs to hide yourselves, rather you will remain serene in the midst of the hurricane. And you will see men awaken from their lethargy, establishing a comparison between one religion and another, and finding human imperfection in everything. They will ask, what is spiritualism? Then my emissaries and apostles, without proclaiming or prevaricating, without boasting of any kind, will show the purity, simplicity and the light of this doctrine, and the world will bend down convinced of its truth. There will be great fights, you will be persecuted and slandered. You will find contradiction everywhere and sometimes great and well-founded arguments, but do not let yourselves be impressed by the word of men, because if it is not supported by works of truth, it will only be an empty word. If you have confidence in me and prepare yourselves, I will not leave you alone, I will speak through your mouth and you will be aware of the works that I do through you. Humanity will begin to sense the true path and seek me as I have expected, with the Spirit. Everyone who recognizes that he carries the Father in his own heart, will instantly cease to be an enemy of his own brother and fellow man. It will be when forgiveness, reconciliation, charity and fraternity arise. Then men will be able to say that they have seen Jesus, who has come down from his cross to say to the world, the blood that I have shed for your salvation has ceased to flow, here I am forever with you. People, I have received before my word good and evil, men of all tendencies, those who love me and those who have turned their backs on me, because they are all my children. I love all equally and all will love and serve me too. Today I come to unite you all, since my blood shed in the second era was not enough for you, because you have not been able to carry out the work of fraternity and love that my doctrine came to teach you. How long are you going to take to convince yourselves that only in the fulfillment of my law can you find health, happiness and life? You recognize that in material life there are principles that you have to adhere to in order to survive, but you have forgotten that also in the spiritual there are principles that must be respected, so that man can enjoy the source of eternal life that exists in the divine. In this time the proud and the foolish, the materialized and the incredulous will have to listen to me, and their hearts has been like barren land for my seed. I will sow again until flowers sprout from the rocks. On every spirit I will pour the source of my grace until I purify it, but it will no longer be the waters of the Jordan, but the light of my grace, of my justice, which, upon touching those spirits, will awaken them so that they listen to the voice of their conscience that will lead them to prayer, repentance and regeneration. I am fulfilling what I promised you in the second era. I announced it to you when I allowed you to understand through my word that an era of peace and spirituality would come. Now you are living in that era in which traditions, rites, ceremonies, symbols and images will be erased, freeing your spirit of prejudice, fanaticism and idolatry to adopt the true worship of God. When these words reach the ears of materialists, they will smile incredulously at my doctrine and at my prophecies, but man's skepticism has never hurt me. In the second era, it happened that when the good news of my teaching reached the great cities and the great empires like Rome, the men also smiled when they learned that Jesus was a poor Galilean who was followed by a few fishermen, also poor and humble like him. Their taunts didn't hurt me, because I knew they didn't know me. They did not understand that my power lay precisely in that humility and that my strength lay in that word full of love and justice, which seemed incomprehensible to many and judged by others as impossible to put into practice. When they learned that Jesus had been crucified as if he were a criminal and that his death would serve as a warning to his disciples and followers, they did not expect that blood to serve to fertilize the seed that had just been sown. Faith arose among the skeptics, sacrifice sprouted among the believers, the light of hope shone among the slaves, among the oppressed, and everywhere the divine teachings of the Redeemer were heard on the lips of men crying out for justice and talking about love. A superior force enveloped the spirit of the men of faith, and that overflowing force was like a torrent that no human power could contain. It was a rushing river that advanced from city to city and from country to country, down the valleys and up the mountains. There was no home, whether it was a hut or a palace, where that influence did not reach. It was the river of life that came to overflow on the dead fields. It was the ever-loving justice of your Father that came to men to wash their spirits and judge their works. When that torrent stopped running, a new world came to light, a new humanity appeared on earth, and yet, it was the same. The light of a new teaching had brought her out of her lethargy, to help her take a step in the spiritual advancement that was leading her towards the perfect being whom you call God and Father. That is why now I tell you, skeptical and materialistic men, that when you hear these rumors that I have been among men communicating with them through their understanding, and when you come to learn of the teachings contained in my doctrine, do not smile mockingly, nor do you judge the teachings of my work as impossible for human accomplishment, of this work that I am entrusting to you, because later it will hurt you for having resisted listening to it, when you see it flourishing, rather, when you feel the force of the torrent lashing your doors, open them and let it enter. I assure you that it will only take what it finds impure, because it will respect whatever good there was in your life. With this I give you to understand that you must learn to analyze the essence of this word, so that you learn, little by little, of my truth as you delve into it, because in that meditation you will come to convince yourself that the realization of many of the prophecies given in previous times are truly being fulfilled, as well as many of the prophecies that my envoys gave you, when they announced the arrival of the Spirit of truth, of the Spirit of consolation. My peace be with you.